everybody, good morning and welcome to Adobe Live. This is Better Know a Brush and I'm your host, Renee Di Cherri. I'm the marketing manager here for drawing and painting. And I'm an artist too, which is why brushes are so important to me personally. So there's no wrong or right way to use a brush, but brushes are the core of digital art. They're everything that you see when someone's drawing and painting, and knowing better how to make them and how to use them can really just give you more options whenever you're creating in Photoshop or whenever you guys are able to create in the upcoming Adobe Fresco. So we started this series to show you all about brushes, and today I've got Anna Daviscourt with me. Anna Daviscourt is part of the Adobe family. She's a former creative resident and one of our very dear friends. Her creative residency focused on creating children's literature illustrations, and it's perfect because she's adorable. She's got a wonderful personality.
Thank you, Renee.
And her art shines through that in her adorable, sweet drawings, which are perfect for children's illustrations. So, Anna, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you. Well, you're way too sweet, first of all. And hey, everybody in the chat. I'm Anna Daviscourt. If you haven't seen me for the last few days, I love to make like whimsical illustrations. I work on children's books now. I'm repped by an agent. Woohoo! I'm also getting into the world of board games now. Ooh. And so basically anything where my art fits, I want to go there. You can see in the background it's very foliage filled, and that totally relates to what we're doing today.
Ooh, really?
Absolutely. I needed shortcuts for making foliage lush looking, so that's what I made these brushes all about. And you can get the brushes in the tab above the chat, so I want you guys to paint along with me today. That would be super cool to see what you make with these brushes. I want to see your brainchilds.
Yeah, so please post them online. Do not forget, they are right there above the chat, so it should be like that way or this way, or I'm not
just
sure.
Point everywhere.
It's somewhere. But you guys can get those brushes. You can paint along with us today, and we've also got a special chat and win. So if you're watching on behance.com, you're going to want to log in because there's a chat where you can actually talk to us. You can ask us questions, you can hang out, and you can also win fun prizes. So you can win 100 free stickers from Sticker Mule.
More stickers!
And all you got to do is chat with us. And really, is that so hard? You know you want to chat with us.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
I think the only two people in the world right now that are disqualified from this are Kendall and I believe Simon from yesterday. They're the two winners.
Okay, so Kendall and Simon, if you're out there, sorry, friends. So I'm going to take
sorry you got 100 free stickers.
Yeah, sorry. I'm going to take a look at the chat. Why don't you go ahead and get started in Adobe Fresco. Now,
absolutely.
Keep in mind, guys, that are in the chat that are watching, we're going to be using Adobe Fresco. It's not out yet, but you can use Anna's brushes today in Photoshop. And that's where you created them, right?
I made them in Photoshop, heavily relying on Sid Weiler's demo that she did at Icon last year. She basically showed top to bottom how to make a brush, and I followed that to a T. And basically, there are so many different ways of tweaking what you want from a brush. So there are some of the different elements in here. For the most part though, a lot of this emphasis is not necessarily on like a texture of a brush. Like Kyle and Sid are both great at putting a ton of like, you know, there's chalky textures, there's inky textures, there's just everything you could possibly want. So I used a lot of Kyle's brushes to make these what I wanted like one of my drawings to look like, but then like repeated. I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm gonna just show off some of the brushes plainly right now, and then we'll work on a picture.
That sounds good.
So like check out this one. So I have been in love with Kyle's Tilterific brush lately.
Yeah.
And this is using the Tilterific brush. I drew some leaves in like a pattern of bushing out basically.
Yeah.
And then you can tweak all of the settings within the brush making panel to make this look exactly the way it does, like follow the direction of the pen.
That's amazing because it's following your stroke. So every time you move, it's like, yeah, it's totally growing.
Absolutely, and that's kind of key when you're working with foliage because there's always going to be an origin point and then going outward. So it's it makes it so much faster, guys. I was talking the other day about doing this piece that is super lush, full of foliage. Again, if mom's watching, don't look at this part. I'm making her a present for her birthday, and it's this gigantic piece of her in the backyard.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And yeah, it's like really beautiful. It's actually coming along really nicely, but it's so dense that you can zoom in 5 times and still see all the detail in the foliage. So I was spending hours at midnight painting this thing for my Patreon where I was posting the progress of it. And it felt like this is great. I love diving into painting when it's like super detailed and like juicy, but I was spending too much time on it. So I wanted to kind of take this opportunity to shortcut that.
And brushes can help you do that. Brushes can help you
sure.
shortcut things while you're drawing. You don't need to draw every single little leaf.
Exactly.
And in fact, if you watch someone like Bob Ross, you'll see he doesn't do that. You know, he uses the brush to his advantage. Whoa, look at that.
This is the Ferny brush.
Wow. What's this one called? The Ferny brush.
Ferns, I think.
That's amazing.
I honestly didn't know you were gonna look at the names of them. I named them just like what came to mind at the moment, but I love that you paid attention to the name.
You have to name, well, you know, when you're drawing with a brush, you want to know the name so that you know which one to use.
It's so true. Kyle says he's made thousands of brushes, and he's like, I remember all of them
I believe
by their
that.
name, which is
I
kind
believe
of
that.
crazy.
So you've been using Fresco for the last couple days, right? For your...
Absolutely, and I got to basically be one of the first to use it for the creative residency. I got early access. I mean, it's been in the works for years, but it's something that I got to see evolve, which is super, super cool, and it's never been better than it is now. Like, I'm so happy with it. I want it to be out right now.
We've got, I think it's Ariana in the chat says that they're going to buy an iPad just to use Fresco.
Yes.
And it's worth it, right?
Absolutely. I'm going to buy an iPad just for it. I had a borrowed iPad for the residency, which is another one of the perks of the residency. They give you some hardware, but it was just for the year. And now I'm missing my iPad so badly. And I'm doing many talks this year about Fresco, so I kind of need it. It's like a necessary investment.
It is.
And honestly, when they first came out with iPads, I remember everybody joking that it's just a giant phone.
Right.
Once
I
they got
remember
this
that.
Apple Pencil, man, it changed the game.
It really
And now
did.
artists use this full time to do their artwork, which is kind of crazy to me, but like I love it. I think I will always be a Photoshop diehard, you know. But when you want something mobile, like this is super important to have, like you know, just availability of going places, doing things, especially studies. I want to go outside and draw plants.
Totally.
So this is another one.
Oh my gosh, what's this one?
This one is the Gorey brush.
The Gorey.
Which is a tons of like hatch marks, kind of overlapping, but in a like randomized way, not just
Now,
regular.
I think I recognize that name. That's Edward Gorey, right?
Indeed, it's Edward Gorey based on his mark making. If you guys know anything about Edward Gorey, he's got tons and tons of marks in his paintings, drawings, illustrations, whatever.
He was a children's book illustrator, right?
Yes, but I first got introduced to him by my mom getting me a calendar of his work, and he's got a style that like fits Edgar Allan Poe's poetry kind of thing, where it's like dark and moody.
It's kind of creepy. I see
It's
that.
very creepy. And the calendar was all about unfortunate deaths of children, where it's like, you know, Tommy fell down the well and now his ghost haunts the town or something like that. It's so goofy. But like in a poetic kind of lyrical way, he would talk about it, and it's just, or, you know, write a little sentence that kind of went with the piece. And I absolutely love it. Like I don't know. Some artists you kind of can't get out of your mind.
Yeah.
Where you're like, ooh, that mark making, like,
Right.
it's juicy, it's good.
Right. I get that.
And that doesn't necessarily mean you're like, I haven't made my style exactly his, but I've taken a lot of inspiration from it. And that's, I feel like, really important when you're looking at reference. Like,
That's what it's about, right? It's not like necessarily that you need to copy somebody. That's not what reference is all about. Even when you're tracing or when you're doing something, you can just, the idea is to make the most beautiful illustration you want to make. It's not, you know, stay true to what something else.
Exactly.
Right?
And this is when we're diving into style, but I will always be a proponent of story comes first. Think about what you're drawing, you know?
Story does come first.
The brushes can make it like another level.
I've got some pictures here of Edward Gorey's stuff, and I think I see exactly what you mean. And if we swatch over to my screen, you can see it's like, he's got all this kind of spooky texture. And this one especially, you
It
can
looks
see,
like the brush, right?
It does look like
And he
the
probably
brush.
hatched every single one of those in there very carefully. And
But you don't have to. You can
don't
use
have to.
the power of the brushes.
And I'll show you when I'm doing this piece that I'm working on. It's not necessarily that you don't do everything hand painted. It's that you can start with the brushes and you can finish with it later. Like it lays in so much information, and then you can just like finagle it at the end.
Right. Is that a technical term? Finagle?
Finagle, I mean, a zhuzh.
All right. Hit me with another brush. Let's see this.
Let's do, this one is not working on this. Right. I don't know what's.
Oh, you're in the eraser mode, my dear.
I am so good at using
I do that all the
things.
time, actually.
We got the over-the-shoulder glove cam. Thank you, Paco. And this is an ivy brush,
Wow.
which is basically like, it's mimicked the shape of an ivy leaf. this is definitely based on the one that I'm making for my mom because there's this huge wall of ivy in my backyard. So I wanted to make it feel like, okay, this is believable ivy, but I'm not painting every leaf.
Okay, but let me zoom in here because this looks like you drew it. Look at that. So did you actually just draw that shape?
Absolutely. I used, I believe it was Kyle's HB pencil brush,
Really?
and I just went zoop, 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 you know, just to mimic the shape of the leaf. And then I put 3 unique leaves together, and these are all
clustered.
Yeah, they're clustered kind of closely, so it feels like they're kind of growing together. If they were a little spaced out, you would see that there are 3 of them, you know?
Yeah.
So this kind of makes it flow evenly. And then there's like a little bit of size difference based on the pressure.
Right.
So you can see there that it's like small, big.
Right.
And also these guys are flipped on the, I think like X-axis or Y-axis, something like that. So there will be 3 this way and then 3 that way.
That's
so
cool. And we'll get into that. I'll let you go through your brushes first, and I'll show you guys in Photoshop where you can make those changes, but we'll do that in a little bit. I want to see some more of your brushes.
And this can also show flow too. So
Yeah,
like, you
it
can see like
does.
directionality in it and overlapping and stuff like that.
Christopher wants to know if these are vector brushes, and they're not. These are actually pixel brushes. So the vector brushes look different. They've got sort of those sharp lines. But what I really love is that you used a brush to make a brush. Like you literally drew with a brush to make a brush, and that's like brush inception.
Exactly. It's like the little nesting dolls. Brush and brush and brush.
I love it.
But I couldn't imagine a different way of doing it because there's so much at your disposal when you have all the Kyle brushes like automatically loaded in there. It's just, it makes it feel like if I don't use these, it's kind of wasteful. Like I need to use these beautiful brushes.
That's a great reminder, actually. If you're a subscriber to Creative Cloud, you get Kyle's brushes for free.
Yes.
And that's actually in Photoshop, and I will show you where that's at. Let's go over here. And in the brush menu, you can go to Get More Brushes. Right there, that link right there. And I am in the Brush tab, Get More Brushes, and you can get all of Kyle's brushes.
If you're a CC member.
Yeah, it just takes you straight to them so that you can download them all and do the awesome stuff that Anna's doing too.
And it's so fun. Just go through every single brush and like swatch it once just to see what you like. Because honestly, I haven't done that in a while, and it was actually yesterday on the stream I found another brush because I didn't have all my brushes set up on this Cintiq here, and so I had to go through and find like, okay, what does the job, you know? And I found some brushes that I absolutely love, and it was because Kyle came on Better Know a Brush that I found the Tilterific brush, which is my new absolute favorite. It's so good.
That's amazing. Okay, so this brush is another one. What is this one called? This is Liney?
I think so.
Liney?
Again, you know the names better than I do now.
Yeah,
Let's see.
amazing.
Lil Lines. Yeah.
Lil Lines.
This is my favorite. Liney is my second favorite of the hatch marks, but I love this because it kind of gets the Edward Gorey feel, but it's a little bit more, I don't know, like action-based. It feels like it's got movement to it, and it's super important for me rendering grass. This is one of the things that I love doing, little hatches to make it look like grass in a stylized way.
Right.
But it takes so long.
And you don't want to draw every single line. You want to use the brush to your advantage.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is when you overlap different colors. So you're like, oh, the green grass. Oh, sorry. Sometimes the direction goes a little wonk, so you have to like feel it out. It's because this one's so long. It's like one little pass of it is a very long one. That's probably really light for you guys. I'll go for, see, this is the thing, overlapping the different colors. I can make a darker green go on top. And then sometimes stylistically I like popping in some kind of like non-grass color where it's like, oh, maybe there's some like brown grass in there, but it's like orange.
Brooke's in the chat and she says she feels like you could make fur out of this one too.
Oh my gosh, if you want fur brushes, look at the Better Know a Brush with Natalie Morrow. That was so good. Or
Natalie,
Morrow.
yeah, Natalie definitely had some great brushes, and you guys can still get those. So
absolutely, they were beautiful fur brushes, and you can see the difference in like how I would render fur, because I would totally use this for fur, and how she renders fur, and then you can think, how do you want to render fur? There's just so many ways to do it. And this is a hatch mark brush, so even though I'm using it for grass in this example, I would use it for fur, I would use it for texture on like a sweater, I would use it for maybe hair, like anything.
And the direction that you're going can give it different, like if you crossed them over, you could get like a cross hatch.
Totally.
Look. That's great.
Yeah, you can do basically anything.
That's super nice.
Yeah, so now it's like a I don't know, another texture for a sweater, I think of.
Yeah, it would be an amazing sweater. And Samuel wants to know what we're working in, and we are working in Adobe Fresco. It's currently unreleased, and we're just giving you a sneak peek here on Better Know a Brush of some of the awesome brushes. And you should know that your Photoshop brushes are gonna work great in Adobe Fresco, because that's what Anna's using today.
Yeah, it's an ABR file. You upload it just like you would any other brush. I sent myself an email with the ABR file in it, and it loaded automatically, like no muss, no fuss. It was super easy.
That's awesome.
And these are available, they work in Photoshop as well. And you can get the brushes at the top of the chat. There is a link for that, I believe. Yeah, it's in the chat tab.
So grab those brushes and please follow along in Photoshop. And if you do, be sure to let us see it.
Definitely.
Post about it so that we can see it.
Oh my gosh, I want to see your guys' paintings with these, because there's just so many ways you could use it. It's very open to creative interpretation.
This is a different one.
Yeah, this is Lil Liney.
So there's Lil Lines, and then there's Liney. This is a lot bigger, and it feels a lot more spaced out.
Absolutely, it is bigger, but you can, of course, control the size of it. A lot of it is just what size I created it at, and I didn't like always adjust it, but that's one of the beauties of making your own brushes, is you can adjust like what size it is seen at, so you can make this huge, gigantic texture brush, or you can make the tiniest little thing, like
And
pixel
if you
wide.
switch over to my screen, I'll show you actually here in Photoshop where you do that. So I'm here in Photoshop, and I got my brush library open, and here's Liney, and then these are my brush settings. And if you don't see that, you can go to Window, and you can open up your brush settings from the window there. And as I'm drawing with this brush, you can see he's kind of spaced out just like how Anna had it. But this is the spacing here. It's under the brush tip shape, and I can change the spacing, and I can get a really different look just by changing that.
So cool. I love seeing that, because it's
Right?
like, yeah, I don't know if I had that exact spacing when I was finagling with it, which is interesting because that looks like fur to me now
Right?
too.
It does,
Like,
right?
I love it.
And I created this brush off of your brush, and that's kind of the way that you did the Kyle ones, right? You just like took a base brush. And
Yeah. I didn't like just tweak the spacing and stuff. I drew something with it.
Of course.
But it's totally using another brush. So I highly recommend, if you don't feel like these are hitting the exact mark you want, take them into Photoshop and just tweak them. Like, just play around a little bit. You'll be surprised at what you come up with. And you could always save copies. So like you can have both versions, you know?
Yeah. We've got some questions in the chat about Adobe Capture. Now, I want to do a whole Better Know a Brush just on Adobe Capture. We haven't done it yet, right? Doesn't it deserve it?
Absolutely. That was another one at conferences when I showed people. They were like, what is this?
So stay tuned on that one. Danessa, we're gonna do a whole show on just Capture brushes. For today, let's focus on Anna's brushes because she's doing something crazy. What is this? This is an amazing vine brush.
Yeah, this is another viney guy. It is, if you look up close, more of that hand-drawn stuff like the ivy leaves.
It's totally hand-drawn. It looks like you drew every single one of those.
Exactly, without all the time. This one's called Plant Baby 1. You can tell. I've really thought about this. And these are, all hand-drawn. Again, they're flipped on the X or Y axis, which makes them varied, so they're not all just the same exact drawing down. But they are also, if you just look at like one piece of it, that's about how long I made the original drawing.
So you don't have to draw it, so you just drew that little amount, and you set that as the stamp for the brush.
Exactly. And then spaced it apart just enough so that it feels like they're continually flowing.
Yeah, well, it works.
I love this one. Honestly, I made Fernie, and then I made this one, and I'm like, I think I like it even better. But I kind of feel like it's, in the picture that I'm making for my mom, she has a corkscrew willow in the backyard, which has these draping vines of leaves. Yeah. And so I'm thinking this could kind of mimic that same flow coming down. And so you could do it like springing up from the ground like a fern, or you can make it come down like a willow.
That's great. And Taylor says that they love your names for your brushes, and I do too. I love them all.
Thanks, guys.
Ooh, are we on the last one now? This one's got the best name, Taylor. So here it comes.
This is Scrabbles.
Scrabbles.
Mr. Scrabbles.
Wow, look at that texture you get just with that.
Yeah, it is so fun. And one of my favorite things is, again, overlapping different colors in this one, where it's just like,
holy crap,
you can get really dense with it, or you could have it open.
That's really beautiful. It's like a stamp, almost like if you wet a towel and just like...
Exactly.
You know?
It adds a ton of visual noise really fast, which is everything with plants. Like, you're just trying to get information on the page. And honestly, with the style that I've been going for lately, I just want more texture, more noise, more interest. Without being busy, I think the key to that is keeping the colors and the values very similar within a very busy place. So from a distance, it still reads as one shape.
Because I don't know if you guys know, but like paying attention to your values in a drawing is very important because that's where your eye will go to. And what a value is how close to white it is or how close to black the color is. Like that's a darker value of green, right?
For sure.
Than the green that's behind it. But texture as well can grab your attention. So the way that you use texture is also a way that you can like draw the eye around a scene.
Exactly. And you want the most contrast where the focal point is. So where you want people to look first, boom, put that black against that white of value, you know?
Yeah.
And so this one I wanted you to see like the individual shape of it.
It's beautiful already.
Because this instantly it was just a drawing of scribbles, literally.
Yeah.
And you can see it is overlapping itself on 2 layers. Like even if I just press it once, that's like a few scribbles overlapping.
Yep.
And you can see it kind of like fix into place. It's kind of fun to be like,
fun.
it's like chaos and then controlled.
That's a great brush. I can't wait to start using it.
Yeah, so let's get into the piece so that I can
Let's do that.
show it
I
at
can't wait
work.
to see what you're going to draw.
Yeah, the whole inspiration for it came from, let's just delete all these layers so that, oh wait, that was the wrong layer. No, I think that was just the white. I just want to get all of this out of here so you guys can see like what exactly I'm doing.
And so Adobe Fresco doesn't skimp on the heavy hitting tools that you need. We've got layer groups, we've got tons of layers in there. You can control the opacity, you can control the blending mode, and oh my gosh, this is the cutest little warrior I've ever seen in my entire life.
I wanted this to be a little lost boy out in the forest and to create the forest around him. So that was the goal of this piece, is just kind of showing him, and then like we can figure out where he's going to fit in this piece, and then make sure that what we were talking about before, that focal point is the highest contrast area.
Yeah.
So he's a little bit dark in his values right now, and that's because I want him in this like lush enclosed forest, and then maybe we could add some dappled light, get him like a little rim light going.
Sounds fancy.
It's so fancy. So I started with just lasso tool because I wanted to show the brushes.
Can you show the people what the lasso tool looks like when you do that, just real quick?
Absolutely.
Just like make a little...
This is my favorite thing about the lasso tool. Oh, I stopped drawing and then like, boom, got the selection.
You can't do that in Photoshop.
Cannot do it. I need it in Photoshop, honestly. I want to change the old one.
So just for everybody that missed that, you can stop in the middle of a selection in Fresco and then keep drawing. That's amazing.
So cool. I absolutely love it. And then there's a way to make it straight too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If you tap, you can make it straight.
Yeah.
So
that?
It's both a poly and a regular selection in one. Thank you for, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
No, absolutely. It's such a good feature. I just absolutely love it. And then deselect is down here. Boom. So everything's super intuitive in all of this UI. Like basically, I showed it off to a few people yesterday just in the green room here, and people who had never used it before were like, this is so cool. Like it just is easy to pick up, very intuitive. Not as intimidating as a lot of the Photoshop people feel, you know.
Well,
where you do like a ton of stuff.
Photoshop does everything. And
exactly.
It can't, be for one person because of that. But Fresco is for those that draw and paint.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Oh, and then another cool thing, which this is one of the biggest uses that I have in Photoshop, basically, is just the Alt Select. This is just hold your finger down, and then you like get the selection of this. And I think it's brush 2, is it? I can't remember.
I'm not sure either.
I think it's just the finger. I know. See, this is, I haven't had an iPad for like a few months, and now I'm like, oh, I already miss so much because there's constant updates for, not Gemini, for Fresco, Adobe Fresco.
Yeah, if you didn't hear, Project Gemini was just the project name, and it's something they do here at Adobe when they're working on something under the radar because they weren't ready to announce the name yet. But we did announce Project Gemini's name on June 17th as Adobe Fresco, which I love as a name because it speaks to old art history.
Totally.
Getting out in the wild and drawing, open air.
There's valid reasons for both of them. I love Gemini because my best friend Anthony in the chat, hey Anthony, and my husband James are both Gemini. So it's kind of like, personal. But Fresco is so perfect because it was all about that texture that you get. And a lot of, basically what Fresco is it's all about getting traditional textures, at least for me. I know there's vector brushes as well.
Of course.
But like all the traditional feeling brushes is exactly what I love about this program so much.
A little bit of a reminder for you in the chat. It's about time for the chat and win.
Chat and win, it's coming up.
We got about 4 minutes. So if you're not logged in and you're watching, you really want to log into Behance because you could win fabulous prizes.
Win fabulous prizes, live a better life, be a better person, it just all comes from this.
All here on Adobe Live. That's what we do here.
We just change lives constantly.
So what I love is that you're kind of like
I'm using the Scrabbles to kind of mess
Yeah.
up the edges because
really are.
the whole
great.
thing about the lasso tool, I love that some people use the lasso tool in their style, but it's
Yeah.
not for me. I want texture and
want
I
mess.
want I want all the mess. And that's the point. Okay, I need to like train myself to not be so careful where I'm like, okay, just go for it. Just blop it around because this is obviously it's going to get messed up a ton. They're not going to stay in the same place. We're
Yeah.
going for variation.
And if our focal point is the lost boy, it's okay for the background to be messy.
Absolutely. And this is just the beginning phase. What I like doing with these brushes is layering them. So it's all about creating different textures overlapping.
Yeah.
One thing to remind me of, don't lose the grass. I want to put that back in because
Okay.
that's perfect for the
Don't
lighting
lose the
brushes.
grass. You got some grass between those bushes. Let's all remind Anna when it's
Right,
time.
keep me honest.
Steal some of my water and hope that it doesn't make too much of a
Your
noise.
carbonated water.
I know. I'm a total fizzy water like drinker, and it made a big noise before, so I'm trying to not like mess you guys up on the that are watching.
No, you're doing really well. It didn't make any noise. And if you guys have a soda stream, suggest what she should put in her soda stream to experiment with it.
Anna really wants me to experiment, but
I
literally
want to
I just
vicariously experiment.
I
with
know.
you.
I just drink water. I've never used any of the soda stream stuff.
That's very healthy and good for you. So I'm supportive of that, but I want you to experiment just for my own satisfaction.
right.
So I use Scrabbles to get a lot of texture in here, and you can already see it's just meshing up the edges and making it feel more varied. So we're just going to keep building off of that. I'm just going to arbitrarily make some new layers, but honestly, with this style, you don't have to. You can just paint on one layer and keep painting until you get the thing you like. But
And do you have a
Just
preference of the way that you draw on your layers? Do you have
it
any
really
recommendations?
depends on the piece. I was talking about this yesterday with Brooke. It feels like for professional jobs, I want to keep the layers clean.
Yeah.
But for when it's me, it just eventually devolves into collapsing a ton of random layers and painting over the top. So it just you kind of have to feel it out.
Totally.
But I would recommend if you're doing professional work to be a little more careful about it.
And that's because
little
layers
bit.
give you flexibility. You could go back and maybe change a color, or you could move something around. And I would guess that's probably why you're saying that, right? Because you never know what a client might ask.
Absolutely. Yeah. You never know what they're going to ask, and you never know if they want that, character moved an inch to the side. You don't want to have to select it out and paint in background and all that stuff. Just keep it on in its own group at least. And then within the group, hopefully you can be messy,
Yeah, make it easy for yourself. Set yourself up for
Exactly.
success with sweet brushes that do the work for you, and with layer stacks that help you out if your client.
Pro tips.
Yeah, if your client's like, actually, I want everything to be a desert, and you're like, oh.
Ooh, yeesh. And also, pro tip for clients, just make sure that you communicate up front as much as possible so they don't ask for a desert later.
I don't think. Yeah, I guess that is part of the trick of being a freelance artist is
Oh my
communication, right?
It's a huge learning curve right now because if you guys know, I ended my creative residency in May, which was life-changing, absolutely life-changing. And I have to say thank you to Renee because she helped me so much through the whole process and also just reading the applications and giving all the attention to each individual person who's applied.
It's a lot of work. The creative residency, so many people apply for it, and it's really hard to get in, and it's not always about your skill level. It has to do with if your story is
So
a good
many
story, if we need a person in that area. There's so many aspects. There's so many
Chat
brushes.
and win. Chat and
It's
win.
chat and
Ooh, a
win.
brush. Grab a brush. Grab a brush.
Okay, so I saw that Danessa said they were determined to be 100 stickers wealthier, so we'll see.
Oh, yeah. I like
So
that
right now,
attitude.
everyone who's in the chat, please put your favorite color. How does that sound?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I'd say a mix between green and blue for me. My ring is always my example. It goes from green to blue, and I love it.
It does. It's beautiful. So that's her favorite color. So what's your favorite color, chat? And then you may win the brushes.
Does it correspond with your Hogwarts house?
Oh. And then if we wait a second, the mysterious AI that controls everyone here at Adobe will have a name for us on who the winner of the stickers are.
I need to know more. Tell
I
me
know,
about
right?
this AI.
Yeah, no, it controls all of our brains. We've all got a little implant right behind our ear, and that's what tells us what to do here at Adobe.
It all makes so much more sense now.
Yes.
It's a really nice AI,
And that
guys.
same AI is going to give us a winner in just a second.
Oh, I'm so excited.
We've got a lot of great colors. Blue,
Black and
navy, dark red.
Oh, there's Shauna Parmesan. Hey, Shauna. You're
Hi,
here for
Shauna.
day 3.
Gabriella.
You're Gabriella.
You won. Hooray. 100 free stickers to you.
Oh my gosh, please tell us what you want to make with these stickers, because I'm so curious. And you got to do it in the favorite color, obviously, if you answered with that.
And Danessa, I'm sorry you didn't win, but if you keep on watching, maybe you will. And I want to just give a shout out to you, Danessa, because yellow is my favorite color too.
Oh, nice. I love that.
Yellow is a great color. Congratulations on winning.
Margarelle blue. What do you think that is?
Margarelle blue? I don't know. We're going to look that up.
I know. And then, what was it? Colby said, I don't really have a favorite color. And that's totally fine too, because I feel like all colors are valid, especially when painting. I always feel like you can literally get any color looking amazing in a painting. Gabriella says,
Good job, Gabriella.
Yeah, congrats.
All right, so we got about 30 more minutes to see your background. And
excellent.
I love how you're using these brushes. It's amazing. It's
excellent.
Really, like, you've already got a background done, almost, in my mind. Like, you can
it
just
feels
pop
like
them
it
up
happens fast, and it's also wonderfully freeing, because you're literally just making, it's kind of like abstract painting in a way, where you're just making marks and feeling out, do I like that mark, do I not, I'm not sure. And then also one of the tricks I've picked up actually with these kind of brushes, see the ones that I just made were lighter, and they have kind of an abrupt origin point where they're just poking out of this nebulous part. I like overlapping some of the original color at the base.
Oh.
So I'm just using one of the brushes
that's great.
as like coloring it in, and it kind of randomizes the texture down there, so it looks like
pushes it back in there.
Exactly. It feels like it's overlapped with other leaves. Like it's not just coming out of nowhere like this is a brush, you know. It's like these are leaves. They come out of bushes at like odd angles and get overlapped all the time.
That's great. What a good tip.
So yeah, I'm trying to just play with that, and I'm going literally down the list of brushes and just using each one as I see, or I'm actually going up because I'm going backwards. That's the way my mind works. But this is like the fun of it, is you can just play with each brush and just see, maybe you make a new layer and you're like, I didn't like the way I placed all those. I'll try again, or I just don't like that brush as much as the other ones, what they're doing in this piece. It's all up to you.
Yeah, and what's nice is that digital art gives you that ability. So you can hit undo, you can make a new layer, you can actually twist things in a way that traditional art doesn't let you. And even though I started traditionally as an artist, I started with watercolors and pencils. I love the flexibility that digital art gives you. You know, it's really important.
Absolutely. And there's no reason to be like one or the other. You can enjoy all of the things.
You can bring your traditional drawings in and actually edit them and bring them further here. Absolutely.
And I want to do more of that. I feel like I've worked so much digitally lately that it would be really fun to just like back up and do some traditional. But Brick and I were talking about that the other day. My traditional outlet right now is sculpting.
Oh, I've seen that on your Instagram.
Right, I make the little animals, and it's just been so much fun to sit down at the TV and just like do that with my hands, and it's a tactile experience. So that's been my vice lately, just like sculpting everything.
It's wonderful. Yeah. I love seeing like artists go into other areas, you know, because art is just expression, right? It's just,
it's anything.
To me, art is a preference. People say like, oh, I'm not creative. And it's like, no, if you choose like yellow over blue, you just made a creative act.
Absolutely.
You literally did. So, you know, to see an artist then take that into another world, like whether it be singing or sculpting or something else, that's amazing to me. And I think it can really change your perspective.
Oh yeah, it makes you a better person because you're experiencing more things of this world. Like you're changing it up.
Art makes you a better person. Get out there and do art, people.
Let me tell you, as an artist, I am the best person, just above all else.
You are the best person on top of being an artist. That is true. I will vouch for that. I will vouch for that. That's absolutely true.
But it does put you, honestly, into the mindset of never stop learning. And that is something that every human being could use.
That's true. You know, learning is a lifelong process. And when you become an adult, you get to choose what you want to learn, and that's what's really cool. So, like, go learn cool stuff.
That was my favorite part about college, honestly. I got there and I was like, I get to choose the classes. This is so cool.
No more math?
Yes. There was one math class at the art institutes that I went to in Portland, which is now closed. But they had one math class that I sat through the orientation for.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, or I said, I think I know this stuff already. And she's like, do this this one problem, and I did it, and then I didn't have to take any math classes because I was like, I did one problem to prove I could do what they wanted.
What a deal. I like that.
It's pretty sweet, honestly.
I know. I had remedial math, basically, because I was going to an art school. So it was like remedial art, like really easy stuff because they knew we were artists.
You don't need calculus, man. You just, like, as an artist, I would never need it.
Well, actually, we did need calculus in our Maya class because a lot of that, yeah.
Really?
So that was kind of a bummer to, like,
Yikes.
open up the scripting class and be like, yeah, we're going to talk about sine and cosine. And I'm like, no.
It's back. So, wait. In Maya, you actually did, like, programming for it?
Yeah. So I went to school for animation and visual effects, but 3D animation specifically. So we had a scripting class where we had to mess with it. Because, in Maya, using equations like that are just the simplest way. That's why they exist. Because sine and cosine are circles, right? It's a waveform. And if you need anything to move back and forth, you want to use equations that are already exist in the world.
Yeah.
It actually helped me because then I'm like, oh, there's a real use for this. It's not just
I'm not so sour anymore.
Yeah, right? Like it actually made sense. And geometry has always made sense to me because it's spatial, right?
Yeah.
Geometry's always been chill. Like, yeah, I get triangles. Like,
I feel like I get triangles.
I get you triangle. It's fine.
I really understand them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that geometry is like very useful and probably more intuitive than most other kinds of math, but that's where Anthony and I actually met, was in geometry class. So I remember nothing from it, but I met my best friend there.
That's so cute.
Yes, it's the perfect meeting spot because you just don't really have to pay attention. You're like, pi, got it. Done.
Raylan is in the chat. She says, no, not calculus.
The dreaded calculus.
Sorry, I don't know how we got on math. We're going to stop right now. We're going to talk about color and shape and line and art stuff. By the way, what you're doing is really lovely.
I love using this brush on like a curve is my favorite thing because it splatters out. It's so cool.
It's got a lot of movement.
Exactly. And I want to add a little bit more variation to the individual bushes because I'm getting good silhouettes, but I want more interest within the actual bushes. So I'm just going to go in there and kind of do that and scrabble around because really, like, we shouldn't be precious with these things. These are all about making texture and fun.
But I'm here to remind you about the grass in the middle because you have that really light green.
You are lovely.
So I'm here to remind you that there was a little bit of a path that's kind of not there anymore.
Yeah.
There you go. You're bringing it back.
And see, now it's like, oh my gosh, that path is big. But then you just paint over it with the other stuff. Like, that's the fun part of this kind of painting.
You're knocking it back and you're pushing it forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, it doesn't matter what brush I'm using for most of the time because I'm not finishing this yet. I'm not like being precious and saying these are my final marks or anything like that. And now look at that, looks pretty cool.
It does look cool. And that's a term that you use in art school. I don't know if you guys know that, being precious. So that's like if you're going to draw a face, you don't start with the eyelashes. You know, like
don't, please.
And they call it actually primary, secondary, and tertiary forms.
Good one.
Yeah, that your primary form is your big chunk of your head, right?
Yeah.
And your tertiary form, which is your last form, is the little tiny eyelashes. And you want to start with the big stuff first and go smaller because that's going to make you more successul overall in a drawing.
You're such a pro. You're just like pulling out all these terms like, yep, let me learn you something today.
Well, I got to give the people something.
No, you're so good at it. You give us so much. I want to go to your art school, okay?
Oh my God.
Teach me everything again.
I don't know. I haven't drawn in so long, because it's been really nuts around here because we're so excited about Adobe Fresco. There's a lot of details in getting you guys Adobe Fresco, let me tell you. And that's all I can say is that there's a lot of little details on the road.
Absolutely.
And those got me crazy right now.
And they'll pay off. I mean, they're going to be huge. And when it comes out, are you going to get a break?
I don't know. It might be even worse.
Oh, no. Be troubleshooting everything from there on out.
Well, thank God. Oh. I mean, we've got a big team of people that support everything that we do for Fresco. So it's not, please don't think I'm saying it's me alone. There's like 150 amazing people on our team that have worked very hard.
And they're all lovely people.
They're
I think
all wonderful.
Adobe's really good.
Brooke is one of them. She was in the chat, and you guys might have seen her all this week. Raylan as well is I consider her part of the team. She's our new social manager. So she's running the channels for us there. And if you're not following us on Instagram, you definitely should. So let me do a little plug for Instagram. I'm going to find it here. Oh, is your phone?
My phone's going off because Anthony is texting me.
Oh no, we're gonna.
And I'm super unprofessional and didn't put on.
Don't even worry, but we don't want you guys to hear little boop, 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 boop.
Definitely don't want you to like look at your phone every 2 seconds being like, oh, is Anthony talking to me?
No. But if you're not already following us on Instagram, here's our channel. It's Adobe Drawing on Instagram, and you're gonna see a lot of really beautiful art. And this is where we're gonna update you guys on anything that happens with Adobe Fresco. So if you're interested to know the latest like conferences that we're going at or when it's even out, following us on Adobe Drawing is the right place because this is actually where we're gonna post everything.
I was just bragging about this Instagram to Carol I met yesterday from the Adobe Live team, and I was like, you wanna see a good Instagram? Go to Adobe Drawing. Like, you've got artwork coming out constantly, and you're also educating about the programs, but it just feels like, I don't know, sometimes when you're following a company or whatever, you feel like, what am I going to see here? You know, is it just a bunch of ads? No, it's not. It's really good.
I mean, I'm an artist too, and we try really hard to make sure that it's not a bunch of just ads. Like, we want to celebrate your art, and we want to get you excited about what's coming, and we want to feed you good stuff. So that's why it's not going to be a bunch of ads.
Good nutrition for the babies.
Yeah, and then I see somebody in the chat there, it looks like Rodrigo, said that they signed up for the pre-release of Adobe Fresco, and I want to say thank you.
Absolutely.
It's been really tricky to add a bunch of people at once, and that's why you're still waiting. And if you signed up and you're out there waiting, you're still in line. We know you're there. We're trying to get to you. We know. Stay tuned, and thank you for being interested. It really means a lot to the team to be able to know that there's so many people excited.
And patience is a virtue.
It is a virtue, so thank you so much. We appreciate
coming
you,
from somebody who
Rodrigo.
gets to use it. I'm so sorry. Very glib. But no, it'll be worth the wait, honestly. And all I know about release date is 2019, basically.
2019, that's all we can say, my friends.
Which is so exciting to me because, honestly, like, at this point in my life, it feels like a year goes by so fast. I'm just like, whoa, I never have felt like it goes this fast before.
Listen here, kids. It goes so fast
folks
when
say.
you get to our age.
Enjoy every day, please.
Now, what I love is it looks like you're building rivers of texture to me.
Rivers of texture.
Well, I mean, yeah, you've got this big swooping thing on the top there. You've got these little friends on the ground, and it's just...
Friends on the ground.
It's really, really pretty. I love it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been really fun, and it's a little bit different from what I usually do. Like a little bit, it's more of a challenge in a way because it's like you're fixed to a certain thing, but then you have to kind of adapt to it and be like, what can I do about this that makes it feel like what I want it to look like? You never want to fight the brushes, you know?
No.
So that's.
Are you knocking that back with that same one? Wow.
Yeah.
What a great look.
I'm trying. We'll see what it comes out as. And again, like if I want a feeling of like, oh, this isn't exactly where I want it to be, I can go over it and hand paint a few leaves to be like, this is what I want it to specifically look like. So it's not that you're limited to, you can only do it with these. It's just using them to fill in the most amount of space first.
And just a time check, you got about 15 minutes left. Maybe a little bit less, because sometimes they have to set up for another show.
Right, it goes so fast.
It does go fast. Crazy. Now, I have one more thing I wanted to ask you about. I noticed when you were picking your colors, there's actually a list of colors down there. So
absolutely, yeah. The color picker, this is one of my favorite things.
Look at that. So these are
keeps all the colors.
It keeps all the colors you use.
Exactly.
They're all right there. So if you wanted to keep a limited palette, you don't have to go find it again. You don't even have to build a little like palette on the side, which is what we used to do in them olden days before these iPads.
I was talking to somebody on the Fresco team, and they said it was like 200 colors, something like that you can keep up to.
I mean, that's amazing.
Or is the goal? I'm not quite sure, but it's a lot. Like, it's plenty of room for color, and I absolutely love that feature because it's one of my pet peeves, like losing a color and having to select it out, especially if it's, say, like you use it on a multiply layer and then you have to make it normal to select the color again. It's so annoying. So I wanted to, call that out. That's a really good one.
That's super great.
One of my favorite aspects, honestly.
Because if I can not think and just create instead, you know, like that's really important to me to be able to get lost.
That's the whole goal, right? Is just don't think, just do, like as much as possible.
Micah wanted to know how you created the brush, and I'm just going to kind of guess a little bit, and you can interrupt me as you draw if it's wrong. But Micah, usually when you're in Photoshop, the way that you create a brush is you build the basic stamp. So the stamp of a brush is kind of like, you see this vine that she's using. The stamp could be just those little leaves. and then you select that and you define it as your brush stamp.
Yeah, this is the stamp I used. Basically,
Yeah.
I painted
So that's
this.
the base of that entire brush. And then in Photoshop, in the brush panel, you can tweak the way that it moves so it'll follow that line.
Exactly. Which is, it's way more intuitive once you do it. Like, explaining it is one thing, but doing it is another. And I want you guys to try it at least, just to also know if you have a brush that's like, I like it, but it's not quite doing what I want it to do, you can tweak it. You can just go in there and be like, okay, flow or, you know, spacing, whatever.
Yeah, that's really lovely. And I think in our capture Better Know a Brush, we'll focus on how to make new ones from scratch, because that's basically what Capture's best at.
That's wonderful.
Look how beautiful this is, though. You've got so much depth now in this little picture. I can see the way that like the path goes through the bushes.
Exactly. Yeah, the path, honestly, like when you're doing foliage of any kind, you want it to feel like, I don't know, the right space is being conveyed, and paths are a really good way of conveying space. If I didn't have this green right here, it would probably look like a bunch of flat camouflage or something, where it's just like, okay, it's a bunch of green, what? But this adds that sense of space.
It does.
And the narrower that the path is, it feels like it is further away from you, and then the thicker is closer, so.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this brush has pressure sensitivity, so it's, as you're drawing it, if you let off the brush, it'll make that nice little tapered edge.
Absolutely. It's got tons of pressure sensitivity. It's also directionally based, so whichever way that I'm dragging the brush, it grows that way. That's cool. And that's one thing you have to pay attention with these brushes. You'll see before I kept on going from where the plant is growing from to the top. That's not the way this brush goes. You kind of have to keep that in mind, like, oh, it goes from the top to the bottom. Yeah. That's how it grows. If you wanted to use it for this, say you're using it for hanging down leaves from a tree, then you go bottom to top.
Like a beautiful willow, like you described.
Exactly.
That's great.
So I'm just going to do a few more touches on this, and then we can add the little lost boy in, and then see how he looks among all of this foliage.
Okay, cool, because you might want to adjust it after you look at him,
right? Oh, totally, yeah. And I could go on this for a lot longer. We only have an hour on this show, and I wanted to show off, like, the actual brushes, so, like, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what we can do, honestly.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg with brushes. You know, there's no wrong or right way to use a brush. It's all up to what you want, and it's just about creating successful art. It's not even about making the best picture that's ever made. And
it's definitely not about that. Yeah, if you put that pressure on yourself, you're going to be unhappy.
Don't put that pressure on yourself, and understand that a successful piece of art communicates an idea, and it pleases you, it pleases the viewer, but it's not about like making the most beautiful, realistic image ever, which I think is kind of like, you get caught up in that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. That's a lot of, I teach online as well at svs.learn.com, by the way, but it's when you're working with students, there's a lot of pressure to be like, on top of it and make the best art you've ever made, that kind of thing. It's not necessary. Like, I think it was on, again, I'm going to plug this podcast a million times, but 3 Point Perspective, which is Lee White, Jake Parker, and Will Terry all talking about illustration together. Best podcast ever. It is all about not putting pressure on yourself to make the best work of your life. And they say stuff like, maybe once a year you get your favorite piece where you're like, I made something this year, you know, and it's one piece.
And that's okay.
Absolutely. That's a great thing. If you get one piece, you're golden. So you shouldn't put that pressure on yourself to be like, oh, I have to be pumping out the best artwork all the time.
And I think that keeps people from drawing, which is...
It's a paralysis.
It's criminal. You know, like, you should express yourself. You should draw. Drawing is communication. It's our first experience, actually, with making symbolic language. And just do it. Just draw. It's okay if it's not the best thing.
Symbolic language. I love it. You're just, like, full of so much knowledge.
Symbolic language is something that I like talking about because, you know, like, people will draw the sun and it'll just be a circle with little lines. And we know the sun doesn't look that way. Like, we know it. We know the sun looks different. But symbolically, that's what our brains think of.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's an instant connection, which is more valuable than making something super realistic, in my opinion. Where you're just like, hey, if you get it, that's the whole point. Done.
That's the whole point. Sorry to rant at you guys. I get a little ranty about symbolic language and values.
I am down for that. All right, so we're going to transform this guy just a little bit smaller.
He looks great. Oh, my goodness.
Back here. And then we can use some of the plants to cover up part of him so that he feels like he's among the foliage.
Right, so he's knocked back in there.
Yeah. I think I am going to flatten it just because we don't. I have a PSD file, okay, of unflattened boys.
Keep backups.
All good.
And if you have Creative Cloud, it actually keeps backups for you.
Absolutely.
So that's nice.
Also, they have a feature that gives you a time lapse of what you've painted, so we can watch it back of like all of this happening in like super fast motion, which is one of the biggest things for social media creators right now, because you want to show how you make it, but people like small snippets of media, so it's really useful to have that.
Yeah, Simon in the chat is talking about how he says, I'm terrible at drawing and it puts me off practicing. And that's kind of the thing that breaks my heart. Like,
absolutely.
Don't stop because you're terrible. Keep going because you're terrible. That's why I keep going in my life, because I'm terrible.
Keep going because you're terrible. Quote. Oh, I love it.
There you go. There's a good Reneeism. Keep going because you're terrible.
Oh, it's the Renaissance. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Lord.
I absolutely love that kind of idea, though. I think it's really important to give yourself not just like a break, but to build mental fortitude to make sure that no matter what you create, you're enjoying that you're creating. That's the most important part.
So tell me what you're doing, because you're kind of like, you're changing your mind here, I feel like, a little bit.
I'm putting him behind a bush, basically, to make him feel like he's in there.
I like that.
And it's on its own layer. So if we don't like how we've, like covered him too much or something, I could either erase out or start again, whatever.
Yeah.
But do you feel like I'm changing my mind in some certain way?
No, I'm just trying to make sure that I understand what you're doing so the people out there hear your thought process. That's all.
I think that's smart.
I think it's beautiful.
Plant Baby's coming back.
Yeah, bring them Plant Babies back.
I love this one. I think that Plant Baby and what is the other one? Bushy Leaves. They're my faves.
Bushy Leaves.
At least right now. It changes every day.
Steve wanted to know if Fresco is going to be available on other platforms, and we can't talk about that yet because we're not ready. But know that we're looking at platforms where people draw and paint. Those are going to be our targets first. And it's one of the reasons why it's going to start on the iPad first, because it's such a great experience for drawing and painting. So that's a little bit of a hint.
It's
Anywhere
so
where you would draw and paint, that's where we're going to be focusing on. So think about styluses and touch devices. Those are really important to an artist. So we want to focus on bringing the best experience there first.
Smart, smart, smart. And you're doing what artists want. I feel like...
Hopefully.
Absolutely. They, guys, if you don't know about Adobe, they talk to artists constantly about what they want. They hire artists. They they get people who know what they want, and then they make it
at least. Well, I mean, the truth is that Adobe knows that you guys out there using the apps, you are the ones who we need to please and make happy. So
absolutely,
we want to hear your feedback, and we want to make it awesome for you.
So I'm going to go into a different brush, and I just want to use the basic pencil brush because I absolutely love it, and I'm going to add a little bit of rim lighting to this. And that's something where, like I was saying, if you want that control, go for a brush, like any brush you want. These brushes were made for making textures overall, so they don't have the same control as other things.
Right, and when I did Better Know a Brush with Kyle, which you can watch on the Creative Cloud channel, you can just search for it, Better Know a Brush, Kyle Webster. He told me that the pencil brush that you're using right now is actually fully procedural. And what that means is it's actual math under there that makes the stamp.
Jeez.
So it's always random every single time. It's never the same, just like a real piece of graphite would be, right? It's always a different texture.
And that's like a different thing than creating your own brush, right?
It's totally different. Yeah. It's kind of like the live brushes, where the live brushes are simulating watercolor.
Yeah.
And you can't just make those quite yet because we're not to that stage. But
right, and that's something, like, go thank Kyle on Twitter or something for making these brushes procedurally work, because he's put a ton of love into this program to make sure it really works the way that he wants it to, the artists want it to. He's making these brushes really good for you guys. Along with the team, obviously.
But if you could see Kyle the way he champions, like, behind the scenes, it's pretty intense. He's
very passionate about brushes.
He's on people about brushes, and it's a beautiful thing.
It really is. It's the artist's voice coming out in everything, which is...
Raylan says, "Oh no, math again." Procedural.
We've traumatized.
Yeah, I know, right? We've traumatized the people with math today, which is crazy.
I'm so sorry.
Procedural just means it's generated by like an algorithm, right? So it's always going to be different, no matter what. I don't know what the math is, so we won't even get into that.
Absolutely. I'm also going to add a soft light layer, in here, so that we can get some like cascading light coming through here, which will also adjust the colors a bit. I showed it in the live streams yesterday. I love using adjustment layers, or whatever you call those. Soft light layer in particular, to add a lot of color overlay so that it's not just green. There's like oranges and blues in there, and it just makes everything a little bit more complex.
So adjustment layers are in Photoshop, but what you're talking about about our blending modes.
Blending modes.
So you're putting a blending, don't be sorry, you're putting a blending mode on the layer. And a quick, in the last 5 minutes as you do this, just a quick thing on blending modes. So blending modes, again, are math, I'm sorry. It literally takes the colors on top and the colors on the bottom, and it does an equation between the two to give you a different look. So like the multiply blending mode literally multiplies the colors together.
Soft light, there we go. Sorry. No,
don't be sorry. That's why you get such a great, oh my gosh. That's why you get such a beautiful look. So the greens look different than like the other colors that are under there. Like the brown will be different than the green because it's a different sort of mathematical equation.
Absolutely.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, and I just turned the pencil brush up really big, and I'm using it as a tilt, like you can see in the hand cam. Like if you're just doing it at an angle, it gives it a thicker swash, basically. And then if you're using it thin, you can get that really like precise line. It's huge right now, so that's why that's like
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, so you guys can see like soft light layer makes a difference in just the overall feel of this. Same with multiply. I could put like a whole big blurry multiply back there and push all of that back.
Right.
So let's try that.
Yeah,
we can just like keep playing with it.
A few minutes, and I was like, oh, this will take her a few minutes, and it's like, no, she's done. It's gorgeous, and she's done.
Thank you. I think it really depends on your own satisfaction level when you call things done. And I mean, I could just keep going forever, honestly. Like over the last few days, I've been doing mandrakes and painting Dobby. And last night I finished Dobby, guys. I'm going to post those today. And it just like, it was really fun to do those in a messy way because then I could call it done a lot earlier and be like, I love the energy in this. I'm going to keep it the way it is.
It's beautiful. And, you know, I'm going to let you do some secret stuff over here. I'm going to switch over to my screen. I'm going to plug your Patreon. So,
thank you.
Yeah, Anna has a Patreon where you can become a patron. There's a couple different options for you. So if you want to hear more from Anna, definitely subscribe to Anna Daviscourt's Patreon.
Yeah.
She got all sorts of good tips and tricks and apparently pins. What?
That was a special offer giveaway. I gave away pins and the people who subscribed in June got that. And so it's over now, but I want to do more special offers in the future. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And mainly what I'm doing on the page is creating narrative-based stories because that's what I want to do in my free time. I want to make more stories that are personal because I'm a children's book illustrator, but I'm working on client stuff right now. And I kind of want to keep it sacred that I'm working on my own things.
There's always a balance.
Exactly.
And now that I stole the screen back, you guys are going to you can't even believe what she's doing right now. There's so much
literally a multiply layer.
But look at how much that brought to it. And it's the ease of the brushes that you use. Yeah, look at that. If you hide it real quick.
Oh, wait. Oops.
It's the brushes that you used, giving you the texture, and then it's using your blending modes to your advantage so that you can like just quickly get an effect. It's gorgeous.
And I just want to show you guys where we started real quick too. We can get rid of, or like, what do you call it? Turn off all these layers so you can see exactly the last.
Oh yeah, where we started, all the way back in the beginning with those with all the fun lumpy shapes.
And honestly, I didn't paint into any of those layers again. It was just, I mean, I could have made them all one layer if I wanted to. So should have grouped them and then we could have like a flash on and off. But yeah, it was super fun to make this. So I want you guys to experiment with what you would make with this. And I might, on my Patreon, you know, you have the option of putting up files even for everyone. So it's not always that you have to like pay for everything that's on there. So I might just put up this like PSD so you could have the kid to paint around if you want to.
And you've already got the brushes. Don't forget, if you're hanging out with us today, download those brushes. They're right on the side in the chat. And you can use these same ones that she was using today.
Absolutely. Please take these brushes and do what you want with them because there's so much. Oh, Anthony says, cute jungle kid. Aww.
You guys are so great. And I see I've got a couple friends in here. I've got John in the chat. It's nice to see you, John. Thank you so much for joining us all today. We've probably got about 30 seconds left. I'm just guessing that they're going to kick us off any second now. So I know, right? So we should probably wrap it up.
So it's been wonderful, guys.
It has been wonderful. Is there anything else you want to say to these fine people, Anna, while you've got the floor?
Oh, be great. Do hand stretches. Drink water. Take care of yourself. You're your best tool. And don't put too much pressure on yourself to make the best art ever made.
No.
Just draw, paint, whatever.
That's wonderful. It's good advice, and y'all should listen to it. Anna, thank you so much for being with us on Adobe Live this week. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I love being here and couldn't ask for a better host.
Come on. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on Better Know a Brush, and we'll see you the next time, all right?
Bye.
Bye.